Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Tim Higgins, reporter at the Wall Street Journal and the CNBC contributor, to discuss his recent book, Power Play, Tesla, Elon Musk, and the bet of the century. Also on the program, the Supreme Court sits back and lets Roe v. Wade fade away in Texas. Meanwhile, Texas also passes one of the most restrictive voting laws in the nation. And the austerity ghouls take the occasion of the annual Social Security trustee report to claim the sky is falling just in time to meet the negotiations on the $3.5 trillion budget resolution. Meanwhile, with the unemployment benefit cliffs days away, up to 11 million people losing benefits. New reports show that curbing benefits by Republican states may have actually hurt job growth. Meanwhile, Republican leader in the House, Kevin McCarthy, threatens businesses that cooperate with the congressional January 6th investigations. And the lawyer for 17 January 6th rioters has apparently ghosted. Just gone away. So too has an Oklahoma congressman who tried to sneak into Afghanistan.
They have jetpack technology?
Very well, possibly. And a new report, air pollution is slashing years out of the lives of billions around the globe. All this and the heartwarming story of a black Texas principal, elementary school principal, who's been fired for supposedly being accused of teaching critical race theory. All this and more today on the program. Emma Vigeland, hello, how are you?
Mixing it up today, huh?
What do you mean? By like
I don't know, just kind of getting loosey-goosey with
Yeah.
the format of the intro.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I'll do that.
That kind of day.
It is that kind of day.
It's hump day. You right?
That's correct. Yes. No, Wednesday. That's correct.
No, I
Yep.
mean, I just
Appreciate the heads up on that.
Wanted to make sure that you understood the term.
Yeah, no, I did. I picked up on that. I understand the kids are saying that a lot these days, and I have totally picked
It's
up
all
on
over
it.
TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Big thing on TikTok.
That's what I got. Yep, I've been hanging out with a lot of teens. My daughter is having friends over for the last couple of days of summer, and so I'm getting all the lingo, and I heard them say yesterday, tomorrow's hump day.
Right.
So,
well, I
yep.
mean, we all celebrate hump day in different ways.
Yep, great.
Sam does it by just completely torpedoing the format of the show, but
there you go.
regardless.
Got a lot of stuff to get to. Later in the program, we'll be talking to Tim Higgins about Elon Musk and whether, what's actually happening with electric cars as we have gone through a series of massive storms, wildfires, and that, some function or another are a function of the intensity, at least, and the frequency, a function of climate change. But before we do, there's an interesting dynamic that's taking place now in many respects, and it really is the first I'm starting to see of this. And it's been like 5 or 6 years, maybe more, since we saw this, where both the corporate media's inclination to promote war at the expense of, well, in addition to, I mean, at the expense of a lot of things, but in addition to is taking an opportunity to sort of like intimidate Democrats. We're also seeing the same thing in terms of austerity. And I did a pre-record with Senator Russ Feingold yesterday that we're going to play in about a week to talk about what took place in this country in the wake of 9/11. He was the only person to vote against the USA Patriot Act, but he talks about what it was like being in the Senate when a lot of people knew that we shouldn't go to war, and we did, and how cowed Democrats were by things like the specter. And people have to remember, this is 20 years ago. The specter of Vietnam cowed Democrats in a way that I think it might be, well, a little bit hard to appreciate. I mean, it depends on how your perspective. But
it didn't cow them in a way that caused them to reevaluate escalation.
I'm saying they voted. The Senate was controlled by Democrats in 2001, and they voted for that war despite the fact that behind closed doors, the majority of them were saying we should not be doing this. And then they walked onto the floor and voted for it. And the interesting thing that Feingold said to me in comparing Obama to Biden was that Obama immediately got rolled, or was, maybe that's even too generous on some level, simply took for granted that the generals and the blob, as it were, the groupthink involved in U.S. foreign policy, took them at face value, assumed that they knew what was best, and was intimidated by them. And Feingold said, to his credit, Joe Biden was not. He got us out of Afghanistan, and he did it. He did it when he said he was going to do it. And there was plenty of opportunity for him to extend a couple of days. But he basically made a decision that we need to get out, and he didn't care about the political hits that he took. Here he is yesterday defending that decision.
I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit. The decision to end the military airlift operations at Kabul airport was based on the unanimous recommendation of my civilian and military advisors, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and all the service chiefs, and the commanders in the field.
And so credit where credit's due. Joe Biden got us out of there, and he did so despite the fact that you see, obviously, let's put aside the right wing for a moment, because they're both going to say we can't let the dirty Afghans into this country because it's going to change the nature of our country if we allow 100,000 or 200,000 refugees into this country, or 10 for that matter. And simultaneously, how could we leave them to the Taliban? But you have to also look at the supposed center, maybe even the center left, or really the media that is promoting this, despite the fact that, the American public wants to get out, and there's no really legitimate reason for us to stay there. And just case in point, Richard Engel, who is a beloved NBC war correspondent. Look at this first tweet. Put up the first tweet for me, Bradley. This tweet, this was assembled, I think, by Jeet here on, this is him in February of 2020. U.S. and Taliban agreed for American troops to leave in exchange for Afghanistan to never again be a safe haven for al-Qaeda international terrorists. Why wasn't this deal reached, say, 18 years ago before sacrificing so many lives and so much money? I've asked, can't find a good answer. Now, that is, and keep it up there. I mean, because this is a good question to have asked a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And it's a good question to have asked today. And it's a good question to have asked 5 years ago. And the fact that he can't find a good answer, let's be clear. There's some editorial content in there. And it's an editorial content that I appreciate. Because there is no good answer. I mean, he certainly could find somebody who could give an answer, which is, well, we needed to stabilize the situation, blah, blah, blah. But when he says, why wasn't this deal reached 18 years ago? He's also addressing anybody who would say, well, we have achieved so much in Afghanistan that without those 18 years, we wouldn't have been able to achieve it. And so it's only right to do this now. He knows there's no good answer for that. But, there's no doubt in my mind, Joe Biden thought that the Afghanistan government would last another 3 weeks, essentially, so that we could pull out and then it would fall. And they just miscalculated how quickly it would fall. You know, you got a house of cards, hard to predict which card it's going to be that drops it. But here is the same Richard Engel. I believe it's the same one, right? Maybe there's not two. And this is him just this week. Put up the next. This is him August 31st. This is him yesterday. Biden saying Afghanistan was yesterday's news, yesterday's terror threat, that he's guided by future threats. How can the Taliban, who still deny bin Laden was responsible for 9/11, controlling a country in the center of Asia, not constitute a current and future threat? I mean, what happened a year and a half ago? Could you not find a good answer for that?
I guess not. Yeah, I mean, and now that the final decision has been reached, we're going to call this a threat. We're going to call this a threat. And meanwhile, the Taliban actually worked with the United States to help get Americans out of the country. There's a quote from an aide who spoke to the Washington Post, I believe. The Taliban were absolutely instrumental, says this congressional aide, who helped in protecting U.S. citizens who were trying to evacuate from getting bombed with suicide bombers there, which goes to show that there are not just good and evil actors in this world, and there are not threats, and there are not, to the extent that the national security apparatus wants to portray it, right? There are people who you cut deals with and people who act in their own interests. And
exactly.
It was in the Taliban's interest for us to leave. It was also in our interest for us to leave. It was the right thing to do. And so we worked with them to get this done. And now, you know.
And I have no doubt that we offered them money, or we have offered them future aid, or whatever it is,
right. Or
we have said we will hold off on, bombing you, or we will bomb the ISIS K, I guess it's called, which is a rival to the Taliban. And
much smaller.
Yes, but nevertheless, this is you saw their ability to disrupt things there, and there's no doubt that we have made this deal with them, which I'm sure is no more or less odious or than any deal that we have made with Saudi Arabia, who has in many respects a similarly repressive.
Or the deal we made with them before when they were the Mujahideen, perhaps right. That, right? I mean, oh God, it's so so morally repugnant that we'd be making a deal with the same people who we gave arms to and made deals before. But that was in order to push forward U.S. military supremacy because it was an effort to combat the Soviet Union. So yay for that. This, when we are withdrawing from Afghanistan and maybe not expanding our empire to the way that a war reporter who maybe is a little invested in wars continuing, to his liking, okay, then that's categorically different. I don't know his position on Reagan's policies in Afghanistan during his time, but I'm making an assumption.
Well, and to address, Engel's question, I think do they represent a threat? Well, it's quite clear that we have some leverage with them, and maybe in the form of our Air Force. It may be in the form of our duffel bags of money, but we clearly have some measure of leverage with them. And, I would also say that, look, there's the concept of beet sweeteners that we see with domestic reporters going in and having lines of questions or inquiries that are maybe favorable or appreciated by some of their sources is not atypical. And I would imagine if you are someone covering the Pentagon or foreign, wars by the United States, that you have some sources who are genuinely invested in
only those sources. That's also the issue, right? There's not a ton of regular Afghan people on the ground who are the sources that dominate these things.
Well, they may be, but they're not consistent.
They're meant to buttress a specific story that is fed to them by those sources, who are also cherry picking their intelligence that they leak to these reporters when they could have a trove of other intelligence that contradicts it in order to feed one narrative. So if you wonder why the media is always on this drumbeat, one, it's because some of them got into this industry because they love the American empire so dearly and don't want to think critically about it. And two, it's because everyone they speak to, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, is saying the same stuff, which is cherry-picked for the same agenda.
Let's also now move to what's taking place in Texas. We have been talking about this. We brought up this law, SB 8, I believe it is.
Yeah.
In Texas when it passed months ago. And SB 8 says that the law was passed, and it's a little bit complicated because this was done with a specific intent to protect it from federal court intervention. The law was passed that said it is illegal to abet an abortion. And so that means that if you are an abortion provider, you're abetting abortion. If you are a taxi cab driver or an Uber driver driving somebody to get an abortion, you're abetting an abortion. If you have, if you're an NGO that provides, subsidies or help or advice.
If you're a family member,
if you're a family member,
the woman to her appointment.
But the law also prevents Texas state government officials from enforcing the law. Instead, it empowers anybody, not just Texas citizens, but anybody, to go in and sue somebody for abetting someone's abortion with the financial incentive of winning $10,000 worth of damages against them and attorney fees. Anybody can do this.
You have standing. You have standing. You have standing.
Heritage Foundation has standing. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
And the reason why they did this is because when you are suing, suing or looking for redress on a law that is passed in a state that is unconstitutional, because the Supreme Court has deemed that it is unconstitutional to ban abortion, before 22 to 24 weeks or fetal viability. It is a unconstitutional abridgment of a woman's right to an abortion. What will happen is generally they will sue. Plaintiffs will sue. Someone who wants an abortion will sue a state official to make that question rise into or enter into federal courts and be addressed. In fact, there is a Supreme Court case that they're going to hear this year. I think it's coming from Mississippi.
Yeah, it's a
that is a 15 weeks.
15 weeks, right?
15-week ban, or after 15 weeks, abortion is banned, and it's a test of Roe v. Wade. But this Texas case came up. A district court in Texas, federal district court, judge enjoined this law from taking effect as of September 1. But the Fifth Circuit, which is a very conservative federal circuit, not only vacated the district court's enjoinment of this law, but then canceled the hearing altogether that he had scheduled to actually review the case.
That was Friday.
That was Friday. It goes to the Supreme Court, or I should say petitioners. People are trying to protect a woman's right to choose in Texas. Go to the Supreme Court and say, we need an emergency injunction here. And the Supreme Court, unlike they did when it was the Remain in Mexico policy question, unlike when they did when it was time to overturn the eviction moratorium, they decided we're going to let this one go. And so today in Texas, there is no more Roe v. Wade protection for women. It is over. This is a binary question in Texas as of today. Roe v. Wade protections are that a woman has a right to an abortion up to 22 to 24 weeks from conception. And in Texas, that is no longer operative. It is the Supreme Court, I think, has this on their docket, maybe in the near future.
Maybe they address it in the context of the Mississippi case.
We shall see what happens. But people should understand this is, and this was completely predictable. It was predictable the moment that Ginsburg died. Frankly, it was predictable the moment, in many respects, the moment that Donald Trump won the election. It was predictable before he won the election. I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the shoulder here because it wasn't terribly, you didn't need to be a soothsayer to see this. But we predicted it in this, when I sat in the seat 6 years ago.
People can look that up, Jimmy Dore debate. But the like repercussions of this, I just think can't be understood, can't be overstated. Because this 6 week threshold, say you're 16 and you don't necessarily have familiarity with your period yet, right? Periods don't come on the dot for some of the men watching every 4 weeks. Sometimes it varies from woman to woman. It doesn't necessarily need to be that. Say your period is infrequent in that way. You might not know you're pregnant for 6 weeks. At the very least, even with somebody who is more in tune with these kinds of things, you may not know that you're pregnant. Like at minimum, I would say 5 weeks is when you start to get concerned, a week after your missed period. So that means that there are going to be countless young women and girls who may be sexually active, who may have been assaulted. There's no exception for incest or rape in this provision, in this law, who are just not going to be able to get abortions, and that's the design of it. A 6 week threshold is virtually impossible to notice and schedule for a woman's health. It's just not, it's not possible.
It's worse than that, though, because what happens is if you have a case that is won by someone who brings this abetting case, the abortion provider is shut down.
Oh, yeah.
And there's only so many abortion providers in Texas. And so it's not going to be long before even the 6-week threshold is irrelevant because there are no abortion providers in Texas.
They're already they're being quoted in the New Republic. These abortion providers are saying that this woman said 80% of the people calling in are asking if abortion's even legal in the state anymore, and that they're seeing this kind of chilling effect happen already.
Right. But the abortion clinics themselves, they're all going to be shut down. It's just going to be a matter of months. They're all going to be shut down. You will not be able to get an abortion in Texas.
Luckily, it's a small state and you could just go to the nearby states. Right? I mean, like, this has massive ramifications, as we already just, but yeah.
But there it is. I mean, and no one is more cynical. Well, I'm sure there are people, we've had them on, who are more cynical about the functioning of the Supreme Court. It is an unelected body that has the ability, as we can see, to essentially create laws, change laws, dictate massive changes to our society, or that implicate our daily lives. And when right-wingers complain that 9 people said it was okay to have abortions, in many respects, they're correct. This is a feature of American politics. It would be great if it wasn't, in my estimation, or at least that it was curbed, and there are means in which we could theoretically do that. But the other reality is it is real. And so when you contemplate, at least to the extent that you engage in electoral politics, this is one of the major implications. And it does not stop with abortion, as we just saw with the eviction moratorium, as we saw with the Remain in Mexico, and in countless other cases that we're not even aware of that are, frankly, a little bit more nuanced.
If we want to pass Medicare for all, you think that there's not going to be a well-funded legal challenge by the Heritage Foundation, by Big Pharma, by these insurance companies to challenge Medicare for all? If you don't think that, you don't understand what's the power of right-wing money and what it's going to do to combat a single-payer healthcare system. All
right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Tim Higgins, changing gears a little bit, and talk about his book, Power Play, Tesla, Elon Musk, and the bet of the century, following which I'm going to talk a little bit about this push for austerity when they're bringing up the Social Security. We'll be right back after this. Got a couple of sponsors today for the program. I was a big cereal eater. Well, I was. Then I was like, I can't eat this garbage. Then I found stuff without sugar, and it tasted like cardboard, and it wasn't tasty, and so I gave up cereal. But it's comfort food. I'd give my kids cereal, and then I would feel bad because I'm feeding them garbage. But then, I don't know when it was, 2 years ago, Magic Spoon wanted to advertise in this program. I was like, I'll try it. And bingo, bango, I'm a huge cereal eater now, and so are my kids, and I don't feel bad about it. Why? Because Magic Spoon has amazing flavors, and it also has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. Only 140 calories a serving. It's keto-friendly, it's gluten-free, it's grain-free, it's soy-free, it's low-carb, and it's delicious. You can build your own box. They ship it to you. You can build your own box, multiple flavors. You can choose 4 of the available flavors for a custom bundle. Choices are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, and now cookies and cream and maple waffle. That's right. Magic Spoon just brought back 2 of these popular flavors, cookies and cream, maple waffle, and they are permanent. And that sound you hear is my son, my 8-year-old son, screaming at the top of the lungs how excited he is because cookies and cream is back. I, myself, am a cinnamon and a peanut butter guy, and also a little chocolate cocoa in there. But the cinnamon is a staple of my breakfast. You can go to magicspoon.com/Majority Report to grab a custom bundle of cereal. You try it today. Be sure to use our promo code Majority Report at checkout, and you save $5 off your order. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it is backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, it's magicspoon.com/majority report. Use the code majority report to save $5. Thanks, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this program today. And, of course, my breakfast on a daily basis, although that I've run out and I got thrown off by vacation. I got to get
on that.
They should do that, one of those monthly things. Also, one of the things I did when I returned from vacation, as you'll recall, although it's getting a little bit, I'm getting a little shaggy, is I shave for the week, essentially, the way I work it. Sometimes I'll do it twice a week. And for me, I don't have to choose between a great shave and a fair price. Why? Because I use Harry's. Harry's has been a sponsor of this program for a couple of years at least. And now you can redeem a Harry's trial set when you go to harrys.com/majority. You know the deal. Harry's delivers a close shave, and it does so at a very fair price, still as low as $2 per blade. Their blades are designed to stay sharp. Apparently, they did a little study. Guys who shave 4 times a week say their 8th shave was as smooth as their first. And for people like me who shave 4 times a month, I can go 2 months with a razor. I shave a little more than that, but not much. Harry's blades are crafted in their very own German factory. Harry's design team, they combined a weighted ergonomic handle with their signature blade cartridge. They also have a 100% money-back guarantee on harrys.com. For me, the blade head and the handle are tops. I love it, and it's just been my go-to for years now. No more having to go to the pharmacy and get into like that huge ice glass that they box those Buffy razors in. Anyways, Harry's is giving their best offer to the Majority Report listeners. New Harry's customers can redeem a starter set. You get a 5-blade razor, a weighted handle, foaming shave gel with aloe, travel cover to protect your blades when you're on the go. That's a $13 value for just $3. There's truly never been a better time to try Harry's. Check it out. Go to harrys.com/majority to try Harry's today. All right. Want to welcome to the program Tim Higgins, a reporter at the Wall Street Journal and CNBC contributor, to discuss his recent book, Power Play, Tesla, Elon Musk, and the Bet of the Century. Tim, welcome to the program. I'm here with Emma Vigeland.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
So, all right, Tim, let's start with this. Like and your book really focuses on Tesla, but obviously Elon Musk is a huge part of this. Let's just start off with this sort of basic overview of like how much of what Tesla has done in terms of its technology, right? In terms of like, and we can maybe talk about the sort of broader benefit that Tesla as an entity has done. But how much of that is a function, at least from the technical standpoint, a function of Elon Musk?
Tesla has benefited really from Elon Musk's vision, his ability to sell the vision of electric car. The early development, that early technological breakthrough that they had came from a man named J.B. Straubel and the team he led. They developed the battery pack technology that keeps those cells. There's thousands of these fat finger-like cells in the car that make it work. That battery technology keeps the car from becoming essentially a bomb on wheels. And that was the big breakthrough. And what Elon did was he was able to fund the company. He was able to see the vision. He was able to project that vision to others. And that was really his big contribution.
I mean, so, okay. I mean, I guess I'm getting to, I mean, like, and that obviously, it's important. It wouldn't exist without that on some level. But the genius is less in the technological know-how and more in the sales ability.
Well, that's true. The other thing was he has an innate ability to understand what luxury car customers wanted. He was a car guy himself. And as CEO, he enabled his team to do the Model S, which was really the big breakthrough car. And that was seen as the best car that just happened to be an electric vehicle. And he was able to bring that to the market. So it was the combination of taking that battery technology and bringing it to the road, but also packaging it in a way that the customer didn't feel like they were compromising. And that was really where the traditional automakers had struggled for years when they talked about zero emission vehicles. There was always so many compromises, and Elon just did not believe in that. He held the team to a level where this was going to be the best car, and oh, by the way, it's electric.
All right, so go back to 2003 when the company started. Like, where was the battery technology, and talk about specifically what they had to do to keep it, because this is, I mean, and maybe even before you get to that, actually, I mean, let's talk about the change that has taken place in the context of what Tesla has managed to do in terms of at least forwarding the concept of electric vehicles. Because I mean, I remember back in the late 90s, I think it was, there was an EV put out by Toyota. It was a RAV, I think it was, and people seemed to like them in California. I knew some people who had some, but then they just, like, forgive the pun, pulled the plug on it, and literally had some that were unsold and just warehoused them. Give us a sense of like where that technology was as a business proposition,
Sure.
and then talk about a little more specifics on that breakthrough that they had in terms of chilling the battery, essentially.
Well, the idea of an electric car goes back to the early days of the auto industry, but the gasoline vehicle won the day. That doesn't mean that automakers weren't trying to bring out electric cars. General Motors was very public with its EV1 in late 90s, early 2000s. But the problem was the companies envisioned electric cars appealing to somebody who was concerned about the price of gasoline. And so if you're concerned about the price of gasoline, maybe you're not willing to spend a lot of money on a car, and batteries just cost more, especially back then. And so there was this trade-off between performance and things in the car. And essentially what they would come out with was a car that, while it'd be battery powered, it just wasn't very exciting as a car. Whereas Tesla, the idea, one of the co-founders, Martin Eberhard, his vision, he was a middle-aged guy, between kind of figuring out his career, going through a divorce, and what's the best recipe for middle age? Well, a sports car. But he was concerned about the environment, concerned about foreign oil. And so he thought, well, why can't I get an electric sports car that's cool, that looks like a Porsche 911, but has an electric vehicle? But he couldn't find one. And that put him on the path to trying to think about how to bring that to the market. The idea with Tesla being founded was start at the high end, start with a sports car. The people who buy high-end sports cars can be, they're willing to pay a lot of money. Maybe they're not making the decision based upon practicality. They might be willing to overlook some things, but as long as it was cool and had performance, they thought they could sell. And that was the vision that Martin Eberhard and his colleagues took to Elon Musk when they were looking for funding to get Tesla going. And Elon, he believed in that idea as well. And that's where Tesla began in 2003 and in 2004 when Elon came on board as chairman. The idea that they were going to bring out the Roadster, that was going to be the perfect car for that person in Silicon Valley who had a Toyota Prius and a BMW 3 Series in their driveway, that they were going to buy the Roadster. And that was going to show that an electric car could be more than just a golf cart. And the big idea that they had was they were going to use lithium-ion batteries. And those are the things that you would find at the time in camcorders or laptops. The idea was technology off the shelf that they thought that they could bring the price down if they bought enough of. And that was a big difference between the other automakers who were always looking for the perfect technology for zero-emission vehicles.
And I got to say, like, I remember listening to Rush Limbaugh, mock Priuses, and they go on the highway and they get run off and this and that. And I think like the Tesla at that time changed that mentality and made it much harder to just sort of knock the idea of a battery powered car. All right. So with that said, isn't it like, then we have a series of sort of like promises that come from Tesla that really, it seems to me, were never delivered. Like, it seems to me, and you'd have a better sense of this, that Tesla was a company for a certain period of time. And from a societal perspective, and with the help of society, right? I mean, there was a lot of government subsidies involved in this too, right?
Indirectly, yeah. Absolutely. The government helped with loans and with credits that help people make it more affordable. And then credits, there are energy credits out there that other automakers tend to buy from Tesla, which have helped Tesla over the years. So yes, they've benefited from governments trying to push people toward electric vehicles.
And then we have like a whole series of promises from the company. And as a lot of those people you write, have basically left the company that were there, who were crucial, were fired by Musk because he's got some other issues. It feels like they've left. And, things like self-driving cars, like that to me seems like we don't seem terribly close to the self-driving car, at least as expressed by Tesla and Elon Musk, at least for it to be safe, right?
Well, that's the challenge of self-driving, is that I think you go back 5 years ago and all the experts and engineers working on self-driving thought that they were 99% there and it would just be just a little bit more and they could do it. The problem is that last 99.99, that one, you go down that road and that's the challenge. Being perfect or being close to perfect or being better than humans is very difficult. But you're hitting on this thing that's very important to the history of Tesla and why it's been able to do what it's been able to do. And then Elon has been able to sell customers and, more importantly, investors on the idea of what the future of cars are. First, it was electric. And then as time went on, as the state of the art grew, then it was fully self-driving. And the challenge for Tesla has been that at a certain point, Tesla was able to kind of achieve many of the things he was selling. But in 2016, there was really what people describe internally as a culture change, where Elon was making comments and claims about the abilities that we haven't seen and going further than some people were comfortable with. And that was his claims about self-driving technology. What they have is autopilot. Autopilot is a driver assistance feature. Think of it as like a super cruise control. It is not able to, you are not able to get in the car and take a nap and let the car drive you home. And some people think the car can do more than what it can really do. And that has raised concerns among safety advocates and experts that Tesla is pushing it a little too far.
How much of this is just this dynamic of being a public company and wanting to have the flashiest perception of being technologically advanced? I did an interview recently about how completely far we are away from lab-created meat. I mean, it's not in the realm of possibility right now, but it's attracted a lot of VC money, and of course, this is a much larger operation. Tesla has ballooned, but a lot of these projects, seemingly maybe more in recent years in this post-2016 era you describe, seem to be more designed to make splashes and thus kind of get investors interested than it is connected to the reality.
I mean, clearly Tesla has benefited from Elon's ability to sell that future we were talking about. It is a stock, it is a growth stock. The challenge that creates is it has to be growing, or it has to be kind of reaching towards that future. But you look at the valuation now of the company, the world's most valuable automaker, by a huge amount, and longtime observers and financial experts kind of scratch their head because it essentially, at a certain point, the market was saying, well, yes, Tesla was correct. The future of cars is electric. But then at a certain point, the valuation would suggest that not only is the future electric, but Tesla is going to be basically the only automaker. And it's not going to be the case. And so then you have to tear it apart, some of those numbers, and clearly people are betting that Tesla is going to win on self-driving, that it's going to be more than just a car company, that there's going to be the energy component, that it's going to have robot taxis and these things. And that's the challenge that Tesla has. And it's rooted in the fact that it costs billions of dollars to run a car company. That's the challenge of being a startup in the car industry, is that you need just tons of cash, because bending metal just eats cash. And that's the challenge they had from the beginning, was to sell that future. And now we're at a point with the company that, well, they're selling this huge future, and it's a race to kind of catch up to get the technology to that point.
I mean, it seems to me, because we have, and he's, Elon Musk, and I don't know if it's Tesla necessarily, although to a certain extent, some of it is. They're branching out ostensibly as if this technology, they can apply it in other areas, right? Like we have the tunnel in Las Vegas that is really just, I mean, it's not, I mean, it's basically a small bus underground that goes to one stop. In fact, down the road here in Brooklyn, you can go to the secret
train.
There's a secret train here that was developed 100 years. No,
subway.
I'm not joking. 100 years ago, somebody had the same exact idea. It wasn't probably as sleek looking. And also, I'm also thinking about the solar tiles. I signed up to get on the list for the solar tiles, like, I don't know, 2 years ago or something. It cost me $100. And I was like, oh, I'm willing to take a flyer on this. And I, 2 years later, realized I got sort of scammed. But I put my $100. Like, how many people did that? I would imagine quite a few. Isn't there I mean, it seems to me, if I had a lot of stock in Tesla right now, I'd be a little bit nervous, because the race is between them developing this technology about self-driving cars, right? Which is going to be the one thing that makes them stand out. And the ability of these other automakers, who are all now starting to catch up on the core, I guess, business proposition, which is electric cars are viable. And once that happens, there's no sort of like real added value to Tesla unless you really like the look of their car.
Well, you hit it on the nail on the head there. That's the challenge for Tesla in the next generation here, is going to be execution. They have this head start with electrification, but as GM and Volkswagen and others race to get into those lanes, they're going to start to face real challenges on the street. And for years, that you have raised kind of this issue for years that people have talked about, that the challenge for Tesla would be, as soon as GM would bring out an electric car, then Tesla's days were out. Or as soon as a BMW or Mercedes or whatever. And well, so far we haven't seen it. There have been attempts, but they've been kind of duds. And so that gives Tesla investors and Tesla fans kind of confidence. But the challenge with the auto industry, it's brutally competitive. Just because the Bolt is a dud doesn't mean that the next generation isn't going to be there. GM is clearly learning. They're clearly investing billions of dollars to catch up. And so instead of there being the Tesla killer that everybody's looking for, the real potential challenge for Tesla is going to be what I call the Tesla nibblers. These competitors that nibble away at their sales at all of the different price points, from the luxury to the lower end. And just every day is going to be a knife fight in that EV space. And that's going to be a huge challenge for Tesla. So putting pressure on these things that you talk about, developing self-driving technology, that's kind of the future they are selling now.
Well, that's they're selling a future, it seems to me, in order to fund a quite pricey operation. And like, forgive me if I'm too cynical here, Tim, but selling a future to attract investors and then not developing the technology that you say that you're close to developing is a scam. Is it not?
A lot of people want to always ask me, what's the difference between Theranos and Tesla? Well,
right.
The big difference is that you can go buy the Model 3. I have ridden in the Model 3. The Model 3 is helping generate record profits for the company. Just this previous quarter, more than $1 billion in profit. And not just because of those energy credits we talked about, not just because of government help, right? They have finally figured out how to make money off of these cars, which is a huge breakthrough, right? So on one hand, you're right. They are selling technology that they haven't yet developed, and that can be questionable and troubling and risky. But on the other hand, they do have some products. They do have a fleet of cars that they are building and putting into people's hands. And so what you have with Tesla is kind of a mix mash of things. You've got a traditional car company, but you also have what you would in some ways consider a startup almost. Companies that are selling what they hope to be doing. And that is what's different about Tesla. You've got that kind of startup mentality there, which could go bad. Tesla is definitely a risk, right? They have risks.
When do you stop being a startup? Like when when your valuation hits wherever they're at, when you're publicly traded, when you've been on the market for years and years, when do you move past the startup mentality and that kind of self-identification?
That's a good question. I kind of think of them as teenagers. It's a teenage company. You know, they haven't quite become adult, but they're clearly still learning some of those kind of corporate lessons that you need to be if you're going to span generations. But one of the benefits they have is they do have that entrepreneurial kind of in the trenches mentality that they're going to try to eke it out every quarter, and that has helped them so so
Peter Pan syndrome.
Well, I mean, I have a teenager, and I can tell you they don't always tell the truth. But it seems to me that in 2016, Musk had this sort of realization that he was in a race, that the distinguishing factor of Tesla didn't exist, and the race became, do we get to actual self-driving cars before all these other major car companies get to some iteration of what we have now in the Tesla? And that to me is a tough race to run. But what does it say about the fact that that's the battle, right? I mean, if in a year or two, GM or BMW or whoever it is comes out with a car that is almost as good as a Tesla, let's say, in all the different sort of like categories one would assess a car like that, it seems to me it's Johnny Ballgame, right? At that point, it's over. And what does that say about a business sector where a company that is in such a precarious race has that type of market value?
Well, the thing about the auto industry, it's brutally competitive, right? This has been going on for 100 years. It's a constant race to have the next hot thing, to put the metal on the street that people are going to want to buy. You're hitting on, what the thing that keeps executives awake at night in Detroit and Stuttgart and Toyota City. I mean, this is the grist of the auto industry game. And Tesla, what's remarkable at Tesla, the big thing about Tesla is that they have got themselves in that race. Really the first company to emerge since the days of Henry Ford to be head-to-head competing against the likes of Chevrolet and Ford and Chrysler. That's the remarkable thing. Now the challenge is you're hitting it. I mean, you're straight on. I mean, that doesn't mean just because they got in the race doesn't mean they can finish the race or that they're going to be able to compete long term. But right now they have created a situation to that valuation of that stock and being able to raise money very cheaply, essentially not dilute the stock. They've got a war chest that will help them into the near future in a way that is really remarkable.
No, but I'm asking you as a business reporter. I mean, as someone who's sort of like, what does it say that there's that much money out there who are willing to bet on this type of long shot, right? I mean, that's a lot of money that seems to me that is bet on what is like a super, super long shot. I mean, I had an uncle who had a car dealership, and so I remember the DeLorean.
Oh yeah.
And so cool car, super cool car. And I think Tesla needs the credit where credit's due. I do think that they helped push the battery technology and made it sort of like widespread acceptance of electric cars. But taking this next step where you don't have a driver, that's a much bigger leap, it seems to me, a fundamental change. And what does it say about all this money that's sloshing around out there that is betting on this, betting on this horse?
I mean, it's not just self-driving, but Elon is predicting 20 million annual sales, which is huge. I mean, that's huge. And the idea, that's why the subtitle of the book is the bet of the century. To pull off all these things, to back up that valuation ultimately, I mean, that is going to be very hard, and which underscores that there's a lot of risk here. And that risk is this kind of the thing that Elon just kind of gravitates towards. He's got a risk tolerance that you don't see in modern executive suites, and in large part because if you want a lifelong career at a place like General Motors or Toyota, that's not the way you rise the corporate ranks. That gets back to the kind of conversation about when do you move beyond the startup kind of phase. Well, it's that entrepreneurial kind of bent that he sees the world differently than other corporations, right? So that's the challenge with Tesla. If you are an investor in Tesla, you've got to believe in kind of that bet. And there are a lot of people who don't, and they tear that company apart, and oftentimes they're not raising incorrect things when they say these are the criticisms. Yes, these are the challenges for the company ahead. So far, they've been able to navigate them. Will they be able to navigate all of them in the future? That's why it's risky.
Well, that's the sequel, I guess. Tim Higgins, a reporter at Wall Street Journal and CNBC contributor. The book is Power Play, Tesla, Elon Musk, and the Bet of the Century. Thanks so much for coming on and talking to us about it. We'll put a link to that at majority.fm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. And just want to touch on that unemployment cliff. We'll be right back after this. How do I short that company? Would someone please explain me how I short that company?
Tesla?
Yeah.
I mean, just do it.
Well, I mean, I'm not even sure I know how to do that. But if there is I know what it is. I know it's shorting.
Set up an E-Trade account and do it.
But the idea, I mean, look, I had $100 to bet on like this, like maybe I'll be able to get this like shingle solar technology. But the billions of dollars that have been sort of shoveled onto this, like sort of, to me, it's indicative. I mean, aside from the fact that I think, in many respects, Elon Musk is like a
lunatic?
Yeah. But I mean, I don't have a problem with lunatics per se. But a bit of a snake oil salesman who I think landed on something, if you're in the snake oil business long enough, you're going to find a product that actually works.
Yeah, if you get a big nest egg from like eBay, which PayPal, sorry. And you can throw it around, and occasionally like some things are going to hit, although like the amount of misses he's had, whether it's like the underground tunnel stuff or the self-driving stuff, like
I think that's all like, sort of like just like a little bit of a distraction to sort of buy some time.
It's content, yeah.
And the idea that like, now I think it's just sort of like there's a lot of like dancing going on, and the music I think is about to run out. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And I think a lot of like there is I think it's indicative of sort of wealth inequality, frankly, that there's so much money sloshing around to bet this heavily on a company that is like, I think it did help, but it's not going to get to where it's going to on some level. And,
I mean, what do you mean by it did help? It created a for upper class people.
But it created more of a market and an acceptance of electric vehicles.
Okay,
I think.
right.
I got a critique of this, but probably save it for the fun half.
All right. Well, we got to take. We're winding up this, and I want to talk also about the unemployment stuff with the Social Security as well. But we will get to that in the fun half, which is coming up in just a moment, and we'll feature Atlek with a critique of the idea that Tesla was even
whether we should even applaud that.
You applaud.
Well, I tried to go. Is this just a scam? Then I don't know if that was like the right.
No, even if the cars are successful, I have a critique.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. And that's an even, even if. But with that said, if you're watching us on Peacock, bye-bye. See you tomorrow. And if you're not, then hello.
Hello
should we give? Let's
put it on this side.
Let's put it on this side.
So there's a George Orwell quote about H.G. Wells, who wrote War of the Worlds, that I always really like, and it says, "A decade or so before airplanes were technically feasible, Wells knew that within a little while men would be able to fly. He knew that because he himself wanted to be able to fly, and therefore felt sure that research in that direction would continue." And that's fine, but the rest of the essay goes on to say about how H.G. Wells just was completely clueless about politics, say, for instance, the rise of Hitler. And it's this, what class of people is making these decisions? Like in terms of things as big as the future. It's investors now that want to lock in automobiles. And we're in the middle of talking about a $3.5 trillion infrastructure package. And a lot of it's about roads, and are we going to have like highways and stuff like that? And it's like, if we didn't have a guy like Elon Musk who's antithetical to public transportation, he's basically like Robert Moses. If you look at what the Power Broker, what Robert Moses did to New York by just putting freeways through everything, I think that's what we're like teeing up for now by basically having this guy be the environmental savior somehow with the cars.
Well, I think, I mean, look, you have to ask the question. In the absence of electric vehicle technology that sped up, I mean, I think like if you accept the premise that Tesla sped up the adoption of the battery operated car, right? Which I do. Okay. Because of, I mean, in the aughts, like in 2000, like the idea of electric vehicles were just mocked mercilessly. And you still have large swaths of the country where it's like to roll coal with your frickin' pickup is like, that's the most American thing you can do is chuck that catalytic converter and blow that, ash out your tailpipe. I mean, so if you accept that premise, and I think, the bottom line is it's a bridge technology on some respects, right? Like we should have far more sophisticated public transportation in this country, and ultimately may run on similar type of technology. And his dumb idea of like that tunnel, I swear to God, there's something called, if you go down to the Transportation Museum right down the street here, you can go downstairs and see the secret train that some dude had made, which it just goes.
But is it lit up in a cool, futuristic, neon lighty way?
Fair enough, but I feel like, okay, it's a great topic to write a book about in terms of Tesla, but it is over. Like it served its function, and now he's just sort of like.
I thought it was going to be more just of a conversation about it being a grift, because you can have an idea that hits gold. You can get lucky. I don't find his marketing to be genius in any particular way. You can get lucky, and then you've got to keep that up.
All those engineers who developed that technology, they're gone.
Oh, they're gone. They left. And the people that still work there, he forced them into unsafe conditions during COVID. And More Perfect Union just interviewed a black employee or ex-employee from Tesla, who basically is alleging that amongst a variety of other, I think, plaintiffs, that he was retaliated against for reporting to HR that he was called a racial slur, and another one of his black employees was a chair was thrown at him. So like, this is not a new kind of company. This is the same kind of.
Well, I mean, to be fair, though, that racist environment doesn't have those annoying beep sounds when a forklift backs up, or the color yellow, because that annoys Elon.
A lot smoother. Right. Because it's in the vision of a megalomaniac, it can't be like one of those boring companies like Toyota.
Ray says, Sam, you should interview Ed Niedermeyer, who also wrote a book on Tesla, on the futility of people trying to short Tesla stock for the last decade. That's the problem, is that like there's so much money in the hands of so few people that they can afford to have it be really stupid in and of themselves.
They can prop it up like for how it's like the United States with the Afghanistan government. We can afford, or we choose to make the investment on a regular basis to prop up this sham. It's like you never know when the eventual. All
right, we're gonna take but I'm like, is that a scam call? Should I take it? Like, hold on one second. Shoot, I think it was. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Head into the fun half. Number 646-257-3920. We'll talk about the Social Security stuff that's happening right now. You've seen the stories. I listen to the radio in the morning to find out what the AP is pumping out. And they're pumping out like all of a sudden there's one, and it's because the New York Times.
How dare you besmirch Alex Perrine's new Substack like that?
Oh, yeah, sorry. And there's New York Times came out with their tweet. Social Security's going to be insolvent. I got news for you, folks. Social Security is not going to be insolvent. The trust fund may run out of funds if nobody does anything, but I've got some other bad news for you if you believe that. All of the government functions that we rely on are going to run out of money if nobody decides to do anything over the next 10 years. If they don't pass a debt ceiling hike, if they don't pass a budget appropriation, there'll be nothing. And that's also not going to happen. So, but I may have, I should have said spoiler alert. But tune into the fun half for more about that. Don't forget, it is your support that makes this show survive and thrive. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Only you can make sure that happens. Don't forget, also, you can check out our Discord at Majority Discord. You can get our email newsletter, the AM Quickie, at majority.fm. Scroll all the way down, put your email in there. Check it out. Stick around at the end of the program. I'm going to open up a little drawing that has been sent to us of Michael. I have a vague idea of what it's going to look like, but have not opened it yet, from one of our listeners. And also, of course, on Friday at one point, we're going to be doing Suns Out, Guns Out. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian universe?
Tonight, David Griscom and I on Left Reckoning will be talking about the Texas SB 8 bill and faux right-wing populism against masks. Also be talking about the history of Blair Mountain a little bit, teasing hopefully a future interview. And we'll have Stella from the UK talking to us about the Labour Party and the increasing agitation from unions over across the pond. So check that out tonight, 8 Eastern, patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get the post game, where I'll be talking about Brett Weinstein when he tried to fire me.
I mean, I don't know if I would keep that in the past tense. I'm still.
You're still considering it?
Well, yeah. TYT's still looking into it too. They're trying to find my files. And
I feel like TYT fired you. Like, you have not showed up at work at TYT.
I haven't got paid for it by him either. So.
Oh, the Blair Mountain. That was 100 years ago, right?
Yep, it's the centennial.
I saw that in the Nation.
Oh my God, I remember that.
The race to Witch Mountain is not yet 100 years old.
That's correct. Folks, also don't forget, check out Nomi's show, youtube.com/The Nomi Key Show. You can find that it's also happening tonight. Make sure you check that out, and see you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous, you're a little bit upset, you're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I want to. You gotta be kidding me.
What?
I don't know if I'm going to read this. I am. This is just, God.
You've got to do it now.
I know I do. Torres. All these riled up anti-maskers and anti-vaccination people remind me of the town hall meetings in the lead up to the ACA, which led to the 2010 Tea Party takeover of Congress. Do you see something similar in this midterm? I'm worried about it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt. And then they write, could you say my name again and lick your lips?
Don't do that.
I'm not going to. No. No, I'm not going to. But yes, I am worried about that.
We have a question about where to find that lab-grown meat interview on Peacock. I don't know.
Go to Peacock. Search reported Sam Seder. Then scroll through the thing.
All you need to do is reported. That's the name of the show.
Reported, and scroll through and see if you can find it.
Yeah, it may be expired by now. No meat pun included.
Yeah, it depends on what color they put in the background as to whether they keep it up. So, yeah. Hey, Senator Ron Johnson, this brainiac, he is a breaking story. This is an exclusive that is on. Where was this on? He was at a Republican fundraising event in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, on Sunday.
Good job.
Probably did not pronounce that correctly, but I'm not going to. And here's some breaking news about why Donald Trump lost in Wisconsin.
You know that Joe Biden didn't win this election. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I just. Well, so he didn't win.
Do you know that? Do you
think that Joe Biden won?
Do you know the in Wisconsin? Do you know the vote totals?
We should tell you.
The source of this is one very esteemed Project Veritas.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
No.
This is Lauren Windsor exposing Project Veritas.
I'm so sorry. I thought that it was potentially them.
And so
Apologies.
somebody asked him. He speaks to somebody, and was the person recording this? Oh, who was the person recording it?
I thought it was Project Veritas, and then there was the.
Okay, so she's asking him essentially to concede that he believes that. So here's the interesting part. He's getting stung on some level. He doesn't necessarily realize that he's being recorded because he's been out there pretending like the election's been stolen.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's having to talk to someone right up in front of his face, he's actually so he's. On one hand, he plays to like a national media. On the other, he realizes like people in Wisconsin he can't lie to. That's what's going on here. So
similar to the Crenshaw video a little while ago.
Exactly. That's what's going down here.
And also, if you're in a one-on-one conversation with someone, it's a lot harder to maintain this like acting posture.
Exactly.
Right? You know that Joe Biden didn't win this election. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I just.
Well, so
he didn't win.
Do you know that? Do you know
you think that Joe Biden won this election?
Do you know the in Wisconsin? Do you know the vote totals?
I don't know.
So without knowing the vote totals, you can't even state that opinion.
I just really need all the small chatter. Just
well, I mean,
no. So let me give you the vote totals.
I know that there was a late night dump in Milwaukee, a vote dump. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were.
Well, we've done a recount in Milwaukee. Prior to this election, I was the #1 vote getter statewide with just under 1.5 million votes. Okay. This election, Trump got 1,610,000. No Republican had ever cracked 1.5 million. Numerous Democrats have gone over 1.6 and 1.5. So now, for the first time in history, we have a presidential candidate beating my vote total by 130,000 votes. Collectively, the state assembly candidates and just Republican state assembly candidates got 1,661,000. The 8 congressional candidates also got 1,661,000. So we obviously counted enough Republican votes. The only reason Trump lost Wisconsin is 51,000 Republican voters didn't vote for him. They voted for other Republican candidates.
But so you're telling me that Joe Biden won the state fair and square?
What's great about this moment is he sort of whispers that part.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he sort of gives like a little furtive glance, like I'm gonna lay some truth on you. He got less votes than the other guy. All right, so go back and play this. It is fascinating that Ron Johnson is this sort of like, and I wonder why he decides to tell her the truth and nobody else. Like, I'm gonna tell you a secret. All right.
Wisconsin, 51,000 Republican voters didn't vote for him.
Go back. I want to watch his furtive glance again. That was I like that a little further.
The only reason obviously candidates and just Republican state assembly candidates got 1,661,000. The 8 congressional candidates also got 1,661,000. So we obviously counted enough Republican votes. The only reason Trump lost Wisconsin is 51,000 Republican voters didn't vote for him. They voted for other Republican candidates.
But so you're telling me that Joe Biden won the state fair and square? Because I don't see it. I don't believe it.
Well, look at the totals. It's certainly plausible. There's nothing obviously skewed about the results. There isn't.
There's nothing skewed about the results.
About the results in Wisconsin. No, I'm not saying what's happening in Maricopa County. I don't know. Saying look at the number again. Collectively.
Come on, Wisconsin and Georgia and Arizona.
Listen. You're not listening.
I am listening.
So listen. Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes. 51,000 more votes than Trump got. Trump lost by 20,000. And Trump got all the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won. He didn't get 51,000 votes that other Republicans got. That's why he lost.
Okay.
So Lauren is so convincing as like a faux
I should just be clear. I don't know that she's actually the person in the video, or if she just obtain this video.
Whoever's in the video as a part of Lauren Windsor's Project Veritas Exposed project is quite convincing as a Project Veritas type. I mean, when they said the late night dump,
right?
That's how I knew.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good, and nice touch with the hat. I mean, you fooled me even.
Yep, that was pretty good. And I like how he's like, I won't actually say that he won fair and square. I'm just going to say it's plausible that he won fair and square.
Gotta
look at the vote
around,
tally.
yeah.
Don't make me. God, that dude.
We got to do the Rubin thing next.
All right, let's do the Rubin thing. What? Let's see this thing. We have a situation where Sidney Powell is being sued, right? Is she still being sued by Dominion?
Who knows? I know I saw on some, like, the Hill or something that she moved back to Washington, D.C. Maybe she just wants to get close to the power source.
Mm-hmm.
A district court in Michigan is referring her and for disbarment recently.
Why would that be? Sidney Powell, of course, was the one who was pushing this whole vote fraud thing. Essentially, made it bankrupt Rudy Giuliani and bringing him into the whole thing with the Dominion thing. Although there's a good argument.
And we thank you for your service.
Exactly. There is a good argument that Rudy Giuliani has just gone completely backcrap crazy anyways. This is Sidney Powell. She was also very much, I think you got to give her some credit, helped big time in Georgia, making sure that the Georgians came out and voted for the Democratic senators. And what do you do if you are a guy who is working for a right-wing media outlet that, and still very much in the right wing, one of the features of the right wing, and particularly of the religious right in this country, is a problem with the gays and their marriage? And what do you do if you thought you were starting out your sort of like career with a sort of like you were doing a dance with the right wing, but you wanted to maintain that you were actually sort of a lefty, and so that you sort of like were walking this knife's edge. And then, like I say, you at one point you decided to dive into where you thought the money was, because the one end of that edge was not so good. What do you do if you're stuck over there? And you're like, it's just a matter of time before somebody finds out that I'm not, like, I don't belong on the blaze. Or I'll tell you what you do. You do this. I give you Dave Rubin.
This is from @DaveClips, by the way.
Yes. Oh, I should read it to people who can't see. All right, hold on. Go back.
Like
now,
a fraud and a liar?
This is Dave Rubin. Listen to her tone and her directness. Does this seem a fraud and a liar? This is back in November 19th. She also made a direct accusation, said they have proof of drag and drop where votes can electronically be switched or dumped. Live in 2 minutes to discuss. And that's
so much discussion of dumping.
This. Now, I saw a whole bunch of people saying all sorts of stuff over the last little bit. People are saying, well, Sidney Powell is obviously insane. She's a conspiracy theorist and blah, blah, blah. Now, I still just don't buy that. I don't buy that this woman is just lighting herself on fire and has gone completely crazy. I suspect that she has some of the evidence that she's talking about, and she's going to try to lay it out in court. If Joe Biden is to be president, and I'm still putting the if there, and we still got to see what Sidney Powell's got. We still got to see what Trump's team's got with Giuliani and Jen Ellis and everything else. The election is not certified, and I still think surprises are coming, as I just said.
First off, let me say that I don't think this thing's over yet. I don't either. I really don't. Sidney Powell, who's his lawyer, and Giuliani, who destroyed the mob in New York.
Well aware of all of
like all of these people.
I'm really up on this stuff.
Yeah. So like these are true fighters who have really done things over the years. You know, Sidney Powell is also Mike Flynn's lawyer. Like they've done real stuff.
Why don't you put that out immediately if you do have something? I mean, there is
you got to build a case.
You got to build a case.
If any of you have ever been in any sort of legal proceedings, whether you're in a divorce or a civil case or a criminal case, you don't just drop everything. The second you get info, you don't just drop it and share it with everybody, right? You build a case so you can drop the bomb or release the Kraken, as they say.
That's so beautiful.
He worked in her catchphrase. She worked in her catchphrase. That's how you know he's appealing. He's getting increasingly desperate in his attempts to be like, don't look at me being gay, audience. Here, I'm going to just like give you all the buzzwords you need. Release the Kraken.
It's so funny because even like Steven Crowder, I mean, Ben Shapiro was smarter about this than a lot of them.
Yeah.
But Crowder was also like making fun of Sidney Powell. But Rubin's useful because he'll just do the dumbest version of what they're all sort of playing footsie with.
Yeah. Now, where is he now? I'd be curious as to like if he ever even brings up.
Well, don't you hear he's on break because after he had his 12-hour Twitter ban for spreading misinformation, he said he was going to be in the lab with a pen and a pad trying to figure out a way to get back at Jack.
Oh, is he still on break doing this?
Yeah,
I guess we got to wait for him to come back in Labor Day, see where what he's coming up with. I have a feeling it's going to be like, how are we going to negotiate this whole thing where we're on the blaze and people are soon going to find out that I'm married to a guy, and that's going to be a problem for me in my career.
The Jack thing's probably a bit secondary.
Maybe that's why the Jack thing becomes primary.
Well, so then perhaps he reemerges like a phoenix from the Los Angeles ashes and becomes a just purely cancel culture dude.
Who still watches Dave Rubin?
A lot of he's got more subscribers than our channel.
Oh no, with that I'm not saying. I know there's a lot of people like, but what is the profile of a person who did that?
I mean, I'm old enough that I remember when I started here, there were still people who were on the fence about Dave Rubin.
Yeah.
Who were like the atheist types particularly.
Yeah.
Like he goes wrong certain places, but he does some interviews that like nobody is there anymore.
Yeah, like I mean, is it just a full on
right wingers?
Yeah, I'm not saying like I'm not. This is not a rhetorical question. I'm like very curious as to like specifically what his audience must look like now.
It's probably just people who have autoplay on who are watching Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh.
50, 60-year-old conservatives.
Right.
Yes, and I'd imagine he gets a good amount of revenue from Facebook, etc. But like the clock is ticking, and even he is smart enough to realize it. It's just obvious he's boxed in, as you say. There's not a lot of angles that he can use at this point. The atheist centrist types, even the Sam Harris types, they've moved beyond him. So it's just Blaze TV people.
Yeah.
And he's not effective at communicating any of these things either. So why not just watch Ben Shapiro if you're that kind of person? Why don't you just
he's only on for a couple hours a day.
Yeah. Shot and chaser. Oh, Dave Rubin is the chaser. Not fun.
Both and.
Calling from a 646 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. Is this me?
Yes, it is you.
Hey, sorry about the classic "Is it me?" This is D calling from NYC.
D from NYC. What's on your mind?
I am unfortunately one of those Tesla shareholders that have been a long time listener of the program.
And?
I'm just calling a bit about the interview, just to maybe chat a bit more about Tesla.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm coming from a biased perspective, but just to share some thoughts.
Please do.
So number one, I guess we'll start with the idea that Elon Musk, obviously he's problematic, right? You wouldn't go to your doctor to get advice on a haircut or, some unrelated expert, right? So obviously Elon is hugely problematic with regard to his stance on COVID, right? His area of expertise, I would say, is engineering, even though that was highly disputed in the interview.
Right.
But
why do you? Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And that guy we interviewed, I think it was pretty clear, was not like a. I mean, he's a business reporter. He is not a.
And he had some admiration for Elon.
Yeah, I mean, he is not. He's not a god of jaundiced perspective. I mean, if that guy doesn't think,
or maybe I shouldn't say admiration, but he appreciated. I don't know.
Well, the point being, he doesn't strike me as like a Elon Musk critic. Yes. And if that guy in reporting on Tesla doesn't credit Elon Musk with any particular engineering knowledge, how do you still?
I'm even willing to concede that maybe he doesn't have that bolstered engineering expertise that sometimes super Tesla bulls will have. So I'm willing to even concede that point, Sam. But when Elon has been interviewed by automotive engineers, right, they have conceded that he does have expertise. But I'm willing to even put that all aside, right? Like,
okay.
Even if Elon's core competency is his ability to raise money, right? I think that is okay enough, right? Because big oil, right, and big auto, GM, Ford, different companies, right, did not want to move to electric vehicles, right? If you look at their plans to go fully electric, right, I think Ford wants to do like 2035 or 2030. How's that okay, right? So I'm willing to accept that Elon's expertise is just money because he has pushed other car companies, as you said earlier, to go electric, right, and to push up their timelines because they frankly didn't want to, right, because they're saddled by assets that are focused on generating and creating internal combustion engines, right, which are completely different than battery and electric cars. So I'm willing to concede that, Elon just can bring in the big money and get us to electric vehicles. That's fair. I think that's okay. I think where I thought Tim kind of missed a big point of the Tesla story is Tesla has been heavily shorted on Wall Street, and Wall Street has a hugely negative opinion about Tesla since its inception, right? There have been huge bets placed against the company because folks didn't want us to transition to EV. Folks were much happier with the standard procedure of ICE vehicles. So just to give you a sense of scale, right, last year alone, Wall Street lost $38 billion betting against this company, right, because big oil has vested interest, right, in making sure cars run on oil. And big auto simply does not want to shift their manufacturing processes and have to invest in batteries and other processes. So I thought that was just something. Maybe he covered it before I got to jump on and listen to the interview, but I think that's a key part of the Tesla story that it isn't always shared, is the huge bets placed against this company. So it's not like Wall Street has had or wants to support Tesla, right? It's only been until recently where Tesla has generated, increasing revenue and profits that Wall Street has kind of shifted its view, although it's still highly skeptical, as he mentioned, right? He believes that the company's overvalued. And you said, maybe it's a good idea to short Tesla. Don't do that.
Well, we just had somebody IM and say that, there's someone who's written a book about the inability I don't know how long term you can get those short contracts. I mean, if maybe it takes 5 or 10 years, but I do think it's an indictment on some level of the wealth inequality that people can make these kind of bets, and we can have a market value, capitalization value that is so high for a company that has. And listen, like I say, I think I was pretty clear. I give credit to Tesla for speeding up the process of getting Americans and the body politic to accept the concept of electric vehicles as being sufficient. And now I think they've done that, and
bye-bye.
Then you have one thing to consider in the valuation of Tesla, right? And this is controversial, right? Like, I'm obviously a shareholder, so I'm biased, and I'm going to own that bias. But here's one thing to consider: why the valuation, again, I'm biased, is justified versus other automakers, right? Tesla's margins on their car are far greater than other auto companies simply on selling the car, right? But then you have to consider the fact that Tesla can sell services inside of that car, right? Whether that's the autopilot or the full self-driving, which is an ongoing process, right? There's higher software margin that can be occurred that just simply cannot happen in an existing ICE car, right? So that's why the valuation is a bit higher, Sam, right? Like,
I get what you're saying, but what is but at the end of the day, look. At the end of the day, if you can't figure out how to allow the driver to ignore the road, to actively ignore the road, it doesn't matter what kind of software you put in there because they can't use it.
Sam, so two things, right? So one argument is that they already have higher margins selling the physical vehicle, right? So just on a comparison without the software, right? But the software, right, if you look at autopilot, which isn't city streets, that's just a highway, that's that's untouchable, right? Like they have a better autopilot software where it can do lane changes and keep in lane, and you can virtually have like a stress-free ride.
Nearly.
Yeah,
nearly.
Yeah.
Every now and then there's a.
But look at this. But consider, right, like full self-driving. Completely agree. Like that's been hyped up. Shareholders will agree. If I can speak for some of them, right? But like look at like full self-driving beta like 9.2, which came up last week. It's gonna be updated, right? Not done. You're 100% right, Sam. But like the idea that the competition is coming.
Dude, they should hire you. They should hire you. Look, all I'm telling you is that, like, look, this stuff. There's, you know, I just the race is, you know, these car companies, and forget about the profitability of the company for a moment, okay? The race is. Well, no, wait. Let me finish. Let me finish. Yeah. The race is. What will come to market first? Widespread electric vehicles from other companies, or actual self-driving cars from Tesla? And what do you think the timeline is going to be between those two things? Because I think anybody in their right mind is going to say you're going to get cars that are going to compete, maybe not as profitably for the car companies.
One key variable. And that's price, Sam, right? The key criticism about Tesla, as Emma said, as they're making these fancy ass cars, right?
Dude, you're not. You're avoiding my question because this is central. Because
okay, I'll answer it. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So I think other competition will definitely come before full self-driving, for sure, right?
By how many years do you think?
I think we're talking at least 3 or 4 years. But
3 or 4? Come on, dude. Seriously?
Sam, so wait, let me just.
So we got the federal government who's going to put all these charging stations around the country, and it's just going to be exclusively for Tesla cars?
No. I'm saying other companies are coming. They're like rolling out now.
I'm saying 3 or 4 years.
I'm in agreement with you.
We're talking 10 or 15 or 20 years. Yeah.
I disagree, but I'm willing to concede that. So another point that I think is missing, Sam, is the point that these cars are hugely expensive. So maybe other companies will release electric vehicles, right? But we know the price point of these cars are hugely important. And Tesla has unveiled, right, like that they're going to be able to cut the cost of battery costs, which will bring down the cost of vehicles to lower than our.
Do you think these other car companies are not going to be able to cut the cost of batteries after a year or two?
But they have invested in the technology, Sam, because they have been committed to keeping the status quo.
But dude, right? You just conceded to me. I mean, listen. There's 15,000. There's going to be 15. We'll find out in a couple of weeks. But there's going to be. The government is putting in all of these charging stations.
Because we need.
No, I understand. Yeah. But all right. Well, I mean, good luck to you. I appreciate the call and good luck to you.
You seem like a nice guy.
And can I give one shout out too? Just our guy
to Tesla?
with the Adidas tracksuit and the gold chain. We missed your brother. Left his best. Take care, guys.
Gotcha.
I appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it.
And incidentally, maybe should I open up now?
Yeah, that's a good call.
So we got sent a gift. Listener Sandy had reached out to us and said that she had a drawing of Michael. Here it is. It's in here. I have not opened it. She wanted she wanted to see what our reaction was. No, it's not.
You need
Right. That was easy, Rick.
Sun's out, guns out. So.
Yep. There you go. Let's see here. Oh, there's cards for everybody. That's very sweet. One for Brendan. Sorry. Whoa, my card's bigger.
Got it.
Let's see. All right, this is really protected here.
Good. You never know what's going to happen in shipping.
Bear with me.
It's called an unboxing.
This is an unboxing. quite sure. Now I don't know how exactly to...
Take the white part off?
Bear with me. Here we go. Oh, this is a little bit more intricate than I had anticipated. But, oh, wow. Yeah, this is amazing. I'm not going to take it out of the protective cover, but look at that.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
The pencil?
Yeah.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Can you turn it this way? That's unreal.
Yeah, that's great. There he is in the tracksuit.
I mean, this kind of stuff, like, I know it's not traced, but I can never fathom how someone's that good at drawing. And
that's really good. Wow. We're going to put this up in the office. Thank you, Sandy, so much. Much appreciated. Yeah, thank you.
That's beautiful.
That's really great. It's weird. It's fairly often I find myself just sort of like, it's just weird. All right, let's go. Let's take a phone call. Let's see here. Calling from a 828 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, it's DJ Cold Case.
DJ Cold Case.
Yeah.
Where are you calling from?
Once again. Yeah, South Carolina, on top of a fully constructed bed frame that I called in about last time.
Oh.
Many people said I couldn't do it, and yes, I've done it. Yeah, thanks to, because once I called in, a lot of people in the Discord came out of the woodwork, so to speak, and offered a lot of advice, and yeah, it's a whole thing I don't want to digress on because I wanted to talk about something else.
Please do.
Okay. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, I was actually just at the Social Security office in my area just yesterday. And yeah, I think I sort of echo that sentiment that I don't think that that sort of thing is going to run out. I am, as the Discord is also, many people are also encouraging me, I'm going through a process of applying for disability benefits, and I thought that, after, applying for certain things through the state, I thought this would be, tedious and awful. And, it was actually not as bad as I anticipated.
Okay. Well, I will say this, and I appreciate the call. That reminds me, I want to get to this story about Social Security. I appreciate that, Casey. And say hi to the Discord.
And to the bed frame.
And to the bed frame, for that matter. But yes, I mean, and we should be clear, Social Security disability, a different thing, and SSI, a different thing from straight Social Security. I want to put up, and here's the reason why I'm talking about this, and it's fascinating to me. Longtime listeners of this program will know that my perspective, my attachment to the topic, to the issue of Social Security is rather deep, to the extent that, like, when Michael would just mock me, it was always about Social Security. I mean, that was the running joke.
And tort.
And torts, but really Social Security. I mean, it used to be like that's what this show was. It was basically just about like the Social Security report. And if you started listening to this show anytime in the past 4 years, you've heard nothing about that. You have barely heard me say the word Social Security because it barely came up. Now, every year, the Social Security trustees come out with a report. And they report on a bunch of different things. But the staple of this report, and they do 3 levels of projections: a conservative, a moderate, and a sort of a loosey-goosey one. Every time you hear about the Social Security trustee report, it is always the most conservative estimate, which means that they are assuming things are going to be the worst for the sake of the Social Security Trust Fund. Back in 1981, Ronald Reagan and Alan Greenspan, they said, we've got a problem with Social Security. Well, other people too, that we've got a problem with Social Security. The boomer generation is so big that the money that is generated by people working and basically paying for the retirement of older people is not going to be sufficient. We're going to raise the Social Security tax, payroll tax, and we're going to fund a trust fund. I don't know, like it's just going to give us a little padding. And the trust fund, the solvency of the trust fund ebbs and flows during because the economy ebbs and flows. The more people who are employed, the more we generate Social Security tax. The fewer people who are employed, the less we generate Social Security tax. That's one feature. The other feature is the more people who make money that are subject, or I should say, not people, the amount of dollars, right? There's always at any given time a number of dollars that are within our economy. The more of that money that is subject to the Social Security tax, the more our revenues go up. So in other words, if I have 10 people, and right now the Social Security tax cap, where it stops collecting taxes at $120,000. Let's just call it $100,000 so that I don't have to do math here.
Okay.
If I have 10 people and they're all making $100,000, then we're going to get, let's just call the Social Security tax 10%. It's actually 16% or it's a little bit more. I mean, you get on both sides or 12%, but let's just call it 10%. $100,000 made by 10 people, $1 million, 10% of that's going to be $100,000. $100,000 are going to go into Social Security system. If you have 4 people making $100,000, or I should say you have 2 people making $100,000, and you've got 7 people making $20,000, right? So now we're at $340,000, and 1 person making, the rest of the money. So we had $760,000. Only their first $100,000 is subject to the tax. So all you're going to capture is $340,000 worth of taxable income, and you're going to take 10% out of it. You're going to get $34,000 because that last person is making so much of the money that $640,000 of theirs are protected from Social Security tax. That is the situation that we are living in today. Traditionally, Social Security would apply to about 90% of the money made in this country. And now it's closer to like 84%. So the revenue going in there is not as high as it's traditionally been. The Social Security Trust Fund, the trustees came out with a report that said because of COVID, a lot less people working, the trust fund is going to run out in 3032, I think it was, or 3033.
And they do some version of this periodically.
They do it every year.
Every year
they make a report.
Right. But it makes headlines when it's going to be depleted by this era.
My point is, it makes headlines when there are those people who want to make it like we have a crisis in this country and we're going to have to cut things. And they're doing it because we're 2 weeks away from this infrastructure bill to start to work on it. But the fact is this: A, if Congress was to do nothing, Social Security is not insolvent. You will get 75% of your benefits.
No matter
ad
what.
infinitum.
Yeah.
Because people are working, they're paying into the system. It's not into the trust fund. That's a separate thing, essentially, for the sake of this explanation. But to assume that nothing's going to happen is absurd, because Congress can address this. They can address this in any number of ways. They can address it by saying, hey, we're going to adjust the cap so that we get the traditional amount of revenue that we've all, or the traditional amount of revenue is subject to taxes, 91%. They could adjust the cap in a myriad of ways. They can get rid of the cap. So every dollar you make in wages, if you're making over $130,000 a year, is subject to the Social Security tax. They could do a donut hole. At one point, that was an idea, between 130 and 250. It's nothing, but then if you're above 250, you make it. And that's the most sort of like normie way you could address this. And it's super easy to do it. It's super easy to do it. You get rid of the cap.
Another easy way is to raise wages.
Well, you're still going to be subjected to the same amount. You need to get rid of wealth inequality to get that money. You could raise wages, but you need to raise the cap in some fashion if you're going to do it the normie way. The other way of doing it is Congress could simply just write, like, the U.S. government's going to fund it. We don't need to tax. That's MMT. The bottom line is, to say in 11 years, Social Security is insolvent is completely fabrication. To say that in 11 years, the trust fund is going to run out is true, but irrelevant. It's no more relevant than to say Congress has not earmarked any money for anything 11 years out from now.
Yeah.
Because they haven't. There's nothing being funded. The Pentagon's not funded. In fact, the only thing that you can count on that will be funded 11 years from now, according to statute, is in fact Social Security and Medicare, because that has a mechanism to self-fund. And I think maybe the CPB actually is because it also comes from fees, banking fees, but you don't know. Maybe no banks. The bottom line is, this is just a scare tactic. And you should be aware of that. And it depends on who you want to convince otherwise. You can tell them, well, we can raise the cap and then we're solvent for, until our grandchildren are there. Or you can talk to, rational people and say, like, the U.S. government can deficit spend, without a problem at all.
The Pentagon budget's going to be insolvent by 2033, Sam.
Exactly.
Right?
What are we going to do? We're going to have no tanks. We're going to have no military personnel.
I don't know why we don't write a version of this up every single year at the same time.
Exactly. Where's the Pentagon trustees?
And you're right, though. It's completely coincidental that this is in the middle of negotiations over a significant infrastructure package where there are a lot of Democrats behind the scenes going, pay for.
Yes, this is...
And some of the pay-fors are good. Like, right, Biden is pushing for Medicare to be able to negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies, which would save billions for Medicare, some good stuff. But this is the other... This is we're getting this is the start to, like, the little push on austerity, and don't believe it. Do not believe it. Part of it's helped by like a slow news day, maybe. But like I saw this on the New York Times last night, and then I woke up this morning, I hear it on the AP, and then it's all over CNN, and that's it. And making it like it's some type of big scare. It is not the case. So, let's go to the IMs here. Rampaging Toaster. Hey, Sam, wondering if you have any thought about having on author Mike. Yes, okay. Went to school at conservative Enrico. Hunt? Yes, okay. Virginia yesterday, so the clip really got a kick out of me. John, I keep missing the start of the show. What's the starting time now? It's noon. We changed it, I think, 9 years ago from, I think it was 11:30.
I don't remember that.
Noon is so much cleaner.
I think it's catching on. Nerd Cheetah, I'm in my classroom now getting ready for first day of class with students. There's mold in the wooden cubbies where students keep their stuff, but that's the way it is every spring and beginning of school year. I've been here. We won't be temperature checking or health screening at all unless their case pops up, which it will. They're already realigning staff at the local small hospital, nursing home, because nurses' aides are catching COVID. Oh, God. My daughter is at St. Lawrence U and will be likely sent home because of contact tracing at the university. It seems like the public schools are just charging into this pandemic because all lives really don't matter. The economy does. On that happy thought, may the bluebird of happiness take a rainbow-colored shit on your windshield of life. Thank you. P.S. I'm in New York, supposedly liberal, supposedly strong union. My colleagues are far too good to be beaten continuously with test scores, and the demands on them go far beyond what should be expected of teachers. Congress can address this is different than Congress will address this. I will tell you something. Congress will address this. Congress will address this. They will definitely address it. There's a reason why they call it the third rail, and you can ask George Bush in privatization, and you can ask Barack Obama, who wanted to cut cost of living increases, and you can ask the Senate caucus, who had passed a resolution to increase Social Security payments. Where can we post our pics for Suns Out, Guns Out solidarity? I have one work tank shot and we'll wear it Friday. Also, do T-shirts with the sleeves cut off count? I mean, go for it. Pillow Talk, the first half of your daily program is the most enriching. I'm curious, though, why you don't edit those long interviews or discussions or take out smaller bite-sized videos like you do for the second half of the show. Shorter videos will be shared more and the insights will reach more people.
We do that.
We do that occasionally, right?
Yeah, I mean, they usually stretch to maybe a little bit longer than, say, like the bite size, like 3 to 5 minute clips. But we do take regularly from the interviews pretty much every day.
Also, it's really hard to clip in context a smaller portion of a long interview.
Yes, and I think like the nature of, frankly, the nature, and I say this, without, I'm certainly not criticizing myself, but I'm also not, trumpeting myself. I just think the nature of the way that I do interviews is not conducive to a quick cut of a question. The questions I ask generally are not self-sufficient or discreet. That's just not, I'm not good at doing interviews like that. Maybe I am, but I don't like it. Hey, Swamp Creature, AMR crew, love what you're doing. Listened to your interview a few weeks ago with Milton Alamati and had a few questions. He said the Tigray people are being attacked on two fronts by the Eritrean and Ethiopian government, and that they are basically the underdogs. However, on the Gray Zone interview from a few days ago, I get a very different picture. The Tigray fighters are actually TPLF, the former government of Ethiopia for 20 years. They are, he said, Milton Alamati said that, and are apparently very aggressive. They allegedly shot missiles at Eritrea and are pushing south towards the capital of Ethiopia. Any chance you can get a guest on to discuss what's going on? Well, that's consistent with what Alamati said. I don't know what you mean by underdog. If you're implying they're the underdogs insofar as like we should be rooting for them, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I would side with Milton Alamati's way of emphasizing things than the Gray Zones on this particular topic.
Yeah, I mean, underdog means different things to different people. In this country, we have a very weird thing with underdogs. Like, I don't know if this is the case anymore, but I lived in Australia for almost a year at one point, decades ago.
Whereabouts?
All over the country, I traveled around.
Right, that's when you were scrounging for money and selling movie tickets.
Yes, and underdogs in Australia lose. They lose. Like they're the underdog, at least at that time. Like you lose.
Can you be more specific?
Well, in this country, underdogs are only praised when they win. Mm-hmm. In Australia, underdogs were praised when they lost.
What, so like the Cubs for a long time would be underdogs?
Yeah, like, I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie Gallipoli? Like the futility of things is what actually gets you. Like,
are you projecting your own financial struggles from your time in Australia?
No.
Their
I'm
culture?
telling you, this was something that I noticed when I was there, because my perception of an underdog was like, if they're not supposed to win and they lose, they're just losers. In this country, if you're not supposed to win and you lose, you're a loser. If you're not supposed to win and you win, you are like, they're the underdog who won. In at least in this one other culture at that time, if you were supposed to lose and you lose, you're still like sort of venerated as the underdog.
I don't think your American perception of underdogs true. Like the Cubs is a good example, right? They have a huge, or the Browns as like an underdog. They're still considered the underdog going into their game with the Chiefs, but they're still the underdog after that. No, I understand, but the perspective
on the underdog, like
a real underdog is like in the NCAA tournament when a Cinderella story goes far into the
Cinderella story. Yeah. That's my point.
Okay.
That's my point. Is that like I can't tell if this person is saying they're basically the underdogs, if that is a value neutral term as opposed to just an assessment of their ability to win this war.
Can you be an underdog after a game? Or after a whatever. You have to probably, because then the Cinderella story is once you win. Like, does the underdog status cease once the game is played?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, well you were done with defining underdog.
Yeah, I'm done with it.
It's just
noble villain.
When I try.
Well, I'm just saying that was just an observation I had, and that's why I couldn't assess what this person was saying about underdog.
No, I'm done
here.
too.
I'm not saying you should be rooting, like the
Someone's gonna play that Spoon song.
Noble villain. I learned yesterday that some more news on video on Afghanistan, that the Taliban offered bin Laden to us before we invaded, and GWB said no. I was 11 when this was happening, and it blows my mind how much of our history since 9/11 was built on a giant conspiracy to throw us in the Middle East. Left is best. Keep up the great work. Yes, the Taliban said, we'll give you bin Laden, but we want to stay in power.
That's the problem with Engel saying like the Taliban are 9/11 deniers or whatever, because it creates an impression about what the Taliban thinks about 9/11, like they're going to do another one at us or something.
Well, it's also like, well, I guess this is what you're saying. Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, also, yeah, like, but also like the Taliban itself had very conflicted views about 9/11 and what that meant for them and their sort of domestic situation. So like the idea that they would just like they're just supportive, I don't know.
And like what material difference does it make that they claim, if they were to claim that bin Laden didn't commit 9/11?
They do, and as you say, who gives a shit? Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter.
The Taliban, the worst thing they could be would be 9/11 deniers.
Exactly.
Right?
What if they're also climate deniers?
Right.
I know. Wow.
Sam's sexy legs. Thank you. Did you see how Democrats are doing everything to stop India Walton, planning to cover it?
Yeah.
They are even considering dumping the mayor's position. Yes, we've touched on that, but we should do more on that. They're already planning for write-in campaign. Of course. Between the 101 and the 5, there's crossover with the criticisms of our media's response and coverage of Afghanistan and the response coverage of the Israel-Palestine conflict. The same things apply, really. Pro-war sentiment, military-industrial complex influencing politicians, coverage bias towards Israel during conflict, etc. Ford F-150 electric means that it's crossed the point in terms of public sentiment or a company's perception of public sentiment. Elon Musk threw a car into space. Craven Moore head. Bravo, Sam, for playing that clip of those of us whose parents gave unique names. Most of the times we're shunned, ignored, like Emma last week's declaration, no sexual innuendos week. She didn't read one of my IMs. I am hurt.
I did
Bravo.
not.
Sam, for playing that. Okay, there we go. Militant apathy. Engel has made a lot of money and gained a lot of prestige playing Indiana Jones over the last 20 years. The thing is, he could always stay in the best hotels, have an armed motorcade take him to the airport, go out in the countryside every once in a while and take a few dramatic video clips while a platoon of Marines are on the line, and then he could leave. Poof. Just like that, he's back in his $1 million home in D.C. or New York. Meanwhile, some E3 has to stay and miss years of their kids' lives, watch their marriages fall apart due to multiple deployments, or worse, they lose limbs, their minds due to TBIs, or their lives over there. I deal with these vets every day. That's why posers like Engel make me effing sick. Robo Gorka. Tides go in and out. You can't always explain that. But also, menstrual cycles are an exact congress with the moon. I love hearing Sam tiptoe around his NDA. Emma, before Majority Report. I really want to know how Supreme Court impacted our generation. Can you share 2 to 3 decisions from the last 15 years which have had the most detrimental long-term impact to our society already?
The last 10 to 15 years?
Yeah.
Citizens United.
Citizens United, and then I would do the gun one in 2008. shit, I can't remember the name of it now. Where the right to carry arms was considered a personal right.
Bush v. Gore, that's 21 years
now.
But
Bush v. Gore was also, I think, probably the worst. I mean, I think you could probably point to a lot of things that made that
what was the one about the Exxon spill from the late...
The Valdez? I don't remember that. Heller. It was Heller in 2008. Thank you. There are others, like Janus, in terms of what it did to unions. Concepcion, I think, was really problematic in terms of like barring people from the courthouse.
Exxon v. Baker, Bradley. Thank you.
I mean, those are just like 4 or 5 that just come off the top of my head immediately.
Bush v. Gore itself is enough for me to argue abolition on.
The census, and I think
you said Heller, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, and people should understand, we're about to move into a zone with the Supreme Court where we're going to get decisions that are going to impact the structure of the relationship between our government and the people.
Shelby v. Holder really recently.
Of course, the rollback on the Voting Rights Act, starting in 2013, which I think, what I would argue is getting there in terms of structure, but the ability of our government to do things. The Affordable Care Act case, in terms of
it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was pretty bad.
The Medicaid, the idea that you cannot compel states, you can't expand Medicaid, was just bizarre.
Yeah.
And left hundreds of thousands of people, probably millions and millions of people actually, without health care. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and people should understand, this was in the course of a 5-4 court. 6-3 is so dramatically different. And these crop of conservative justices are so much more, not all of them, Scalia was sort of like, but 3 or 4, the heart of this conservative court is far more radical. And you're going to see like a structural difference. Like, remember the word Chevron doctrine, and the delegation doctrine, I think it's called. Those are going to come up soon, and it's going to be very, very problematic for the way that our government functions. So, Sam says. Sam's syphilis. I can't quite make it out. I saw a plan over the weekend to flood Texas with reporting of everyone having abetted an abortion to make it impossible to process all the reports. That's a good idea, but Ford's new electric F-150 base model is cheaper than the gas-powered F-150.
The one
F-150 should be an electric vehicle. Period. End of story. It is a that is a vehicle that should be an electric vehicle.
Why?
Because I'm saying today.
Outside of like just but why specifically?
Because it's basically for hauling. You can't use it as a plow.
Oh God, I don't know any of this.
You can't like, you can haul, but you can't haul like heavy duty stuff like you can with an F-250 or F-350. It is perfect vehicle for an electric car.
So if you just want the aesthetic of having a truck, you get an F-150.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's
and you take stuff around.
You take stuff around. It's convenient. Put your your long bows in there, and it's also it's nice. You get a F-150. You carry around like drywall in there, and 4x8 plywood.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough torque for me.
That's right. Bingo.
Really?
Yeah, that's the problem.
I just made fun of that. I don't know what torque means.
Well, you can't put a plow on it.
Okay. Is torque like the speed?
Power.
Oh, power.
Stephen Powder, a friend of mine at high school, was sprinter and regularly stopped getting her period during track season, was assaulted, and then couldn't figure out why she was running so slow. Started getting sick, went to a doctor. She was 5 months pregnant, had no idea. Thankfully, she did not live in a state like Texas. Cad Barosar. But to be clear, again, that problem is it seems to me, is going to become secondary a couple months out, because there's simply not going to be any abortion clinics, period, that are going to be, because part of that bill is once you get charged with abetting an abortion after 6 weeks, shut down. Cad Barosar, hello from our family, cruising up to Trincomalee Channel between Salt Spring and Giuliano Islands near Victoria, BC. Not much wind today, so we're under power, but we hope it will come up afternoon to bring us into Port Browning, where there's some good pizza to be had. All right, appreciate the update. Otters are cool. Sam, you insufferable boomer. I didn't need your ram's horn yesterday. I needed a chauffeur from the hospital. Thanks for nothing. But seriously, love the show. Great job. Used to watch the Demi Jor show regularly. Now I see his vids pop up and cringe at the titles and the thumbnails. Thank you. We should do some more clips. What should we do?
I'm a bit partial to that clip from the Chip. What's his name? No, Clay Higgins. Yeah.
Is that number 8?
8, yeah.
Okay.
But if you're
is this the guy who's gone, right? Or do we know where?
No,
the Higgins.
Him.
Oh, okay.
Because he was here. But then there's also Glenn Beck talking to Lauren Boebert, which is pretty good too.
Oh, let's do that one.
I knew when Glenn Beck was in the title, you'd be going for it.
All right, let's do that one.
Oh, it's on the sheet. Oh.
It's not on the sheet. How'd that happen? Oh, here is, this is pretty funny, though. I don't know why we're talking about Australia so much today, but here is the ABC in Australia. That's the Australian Broadcasting Company. Sarah Ferguson, she's outside of Fox News with Judge Janine. And from Australia, broadcasting the company's new special, Fox and the Big Lie. And she approaches Janine Pirro outside of Fox headquarters. Judge Janine thinks like, oh my gosh, a fan. And it doesn't quite work out that way. This is pretty good.
Keep doing it. Thank you again. From Australia, I just wanted to ask you, do you still think that Dominion and Smartmatic stole the election from President Trump?
I'm much easier. Would you mind taking a picture?
What's the answer?
What a coward.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Oh, now you got to leave.
Their own questions.
If you are who you say you are, why are you not being cooperative? You're with the press, right? We're a press agency, so we're being cooperative. Why you can't be cooperative?
I don't have to tell you what I'm doing or who I am, because I'm standing here in public place and I'm filming, and you don't own the building. You don't own the right to the image of the building.
So mad.
Perhaps it was this moment that finally put paid to my request to interview the current Fox CEO, Lachlan Murdoch.
Yeah, there you go. Now, Murdoch came from Australia. People know that, right?
Yeah. Well, why they're so freaked out is because Fox is in like the process of or had like I think a moratorium on talking about those kinds of things because Dominion threatened a significant lawsuit against Fox News. They backed down immediately from it, and then Newsmax and OAN followed once they were threatened with litigation. Janine, even though maybe she wants to speak and opine like that and appeal to those same crazies, she can't say it. And she's she's far gone and wine drunk on the reg, but like she understands as a former judge the basic like trouble she would be in if she was to continue to go down that road. Now it's just critical race theory and COVID.
Right. We've moved on from that. We've been able to transition
completely
full on.
Organically.
Oh, speaking of critical race theory, we got to talk about this story.
Okay.
You pulled this story up, guys, in the Washington Post. So, and you did an interview with Rachel Cohen from The Intercept about sort of the attempt to push back on this whole critical race theory thing. And, you know, this is the the media landscape has changed so that this stuff doesn't have the salience that it used to have, but it still is highly, highly problematic. What's interesting is this critical race theory stuff. Somebody drew a parallel with the Tea Party thing. This is the way that they're going to try and get their people out to vote in the off-year election.
That too. Yeah, and that plus these anti-mask things.
And the anti-mask things. And they're not really that distinct of a crowd, it seems to me.
Well, because they've kind of molded the mask thing into it's all about my children and how dare you indoctrinate my children or suffocate my children or abuse my children. It's
absolutely.
Just as a projection of their own anxiety that's being fed to them by
a lot of these, speeches we hear happen at the same venues, right? At school committee meetings.
It's all one and the same.
So, and now I know the people who are worried about the authoritarianism and the free speech are going to be all over this in a big, big way. And I don't want to step on anybody's shoes. I know they're out there and they're going to be really upset about what's going on in Texas in terms of the authoritarianism about basically deputizing people to uphold the law by suing abortion providers. I'm sure they're going to be crazy about that.
Right, after all those segments they did on BDS.
And yes, yeah. and on top of which you're going to see the about the new law that they passed in terms of making it very hard to vote. And then this, I'm sure. Back in late July, there was a Texas school board meeting, and a guy got up to talk about the Colleyville Heritage High School principal, guy named James Whitfield. And the guy who got up, do we have his name? I'm not sure if I don't remember his name, but he got up there and he started complaining that this Whitfield was promoting the conspiracy theory of systemic racism. This conspiracy theory that there is systemic racism in this country, least of all Texas.
What are they conspiring towards?
Well, it's just like you're out of your mind that there's systemic racism. That happened in July. The school board was like, okay, you're not supposed to directly attack anybody, and you're charging this black principal of that. Well, a month later, a little bit more, over the past week or two, the district suspended that same principal, a guy named James Whitfield, without explanation. This is according to Whitfield, who told the Washington Post yesterday. The decision followed, according to the Washington Post, several weeks of controversy during which Whitfield tried to publicly clear his name. Students turned out to defend their principal while parents demanded his termination. Now, first off, I don't even know why anybody has to defend their name for teaching about systemic racism.
And I just love the crystallization of the dynamic I talked about earlier. The students defend the principal and the parents want him fired. Why is that? I mean, it's like, I thought it was all about indoctrinating the children. They don't know any better, I guess.
And the guy who made this charge was a guy named Stetson Clark. He was a former school board candidate, apparently. Whitfield said in a Facebook message, "I was not given any clear reasoning behind the decision to suspend me. I was not given a timetable regarding further steps. I was simply told it was in the best interest of the district." So here's the Whitfield also happens to be the first black principal. I'm sure this has nothing to do with it, to run Colleyville Heritage High School. Here is this is 5 days after the meeting, where in July, as people were yelling in the audience, "Fire him," and applauding. He wrote in a post, and I feel bad for this guy because he must realize, like, he's in a very sort of like, well, that there's a huge amount of racists who are around.
And he's got to just like be so careful here.
He writes in his Facebook post a couple days after that meeting, "I can no longer maintain my silence in the face of hate, intolerance, racism, and bigotry." He said, "I am not the critical race theory boogeyman. I am the first African-American to assume the role of principal at my current school. In its 25-year history, I'm keenly aware how much fear this strikes in the heart of a small minority who would rather such things go back to the way they used to be. A few days later, according to the Post, because remember the issue is here, you're poisoning the minds of our children about this idea of like this conspiracy theory of systemic racism in this country.
Which is basically the same as critical race theory. It's all one and the same.
Indeed. A few days later, a parent complained to the district about a photo that this guy Whitfield had posted on his social media. And if you have children in the room,
not safe for work.
It showed him and his wife, who is white, in an embrace celebrating their wedding anniversary. And she asked in an email to the district, quote, "Is this the Dr. Whitfield we want as an example for our students?" The district came to the defense of Whitfield. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. The district asked Whitfield to remove the photo from his Facebook feed because it shows him in an embrace with his wife.
And they may even be kissing close to
To remove the photo to avoid further controversy. What? He's married?
Critical miscegenation theory.
Exactly.
I mean, we joke, but it's just...
No, that's all this is. That's all
disgusting.
the CRT stuff has been. It's the polite way to launder just bigotry through mainstream channels.
It is just, yes, it is full-on racism.
And do we
going
have
from
the
the
name-
solid form to the, vapor form.
Yeah.
That's all.
And do we have the name of that parent who wrote in to complain
Do we
about
have
his
her name?
personal Facebook? No, I mean, the point is we don't, right?
Right.
She gets to hide behind the cloak of anonymity, or he, I think they said it was a woman, gets to hide behind the cloak of anonymity and just throw these disgusting racist grenades basically because he's black and he's kissing a white woman, and that probably really just got her to feel things she didn't necessarily understand.
What's also is amazing is this is why you shame people like this, because the idea, she is so unaware or so unabashed in her racism that it didn't even occur to her, like, I'm writing to the school board and saying that this man should not be able to post a picture on his Facebook that he has a white wife. I mean,
she better not have any photos on her social media with her husband.
And people have to understand too, when you come out and do a measured dive into critical race theory and whether it's appropriate right now, you must be aware, and I'm not saying that people should or should not do this, but you should be aware that you are legitimizing this type of thing.
It's one side says this, one side says that, and we don't know.
And I think it's very possible to have a nuanced, sensitive debate about critical race theory. But understand, when you're doing it at this time, that you need to take account for the broader context in which you're introducing this stuff. And you cannot deny it. You cannot deny it. It exists. This debate exists. You can come in and say, I'm going to do a nuanced debate about the validity of critical race theory. And it just so happens I'm doing it now. If you're just doing it because you find it interesting, be aware of what you're adding to.
What's interesting about it?
Well, no, it may be interesting.
Look, there's a critique about particularly like Robin DiAngelo's The Cartoon of sort of corporate anti-racism, and that's like an issue.
Well, I share that critique.
Right, of course. But again, like if you just emphasize that critique in the context of this CRT panic, then you're helping that panic.
Yes.
This is what Sam Harris did during the huge debate about torture in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, let me take a nuanced take about torture. Really? Really? Is that what you're doing? It's just so coincidentally, like it's just happening right now. Like
or a nuanced take on Muslim violence.
I don't know. There's a difference of I'm going to double park my car in front of this hydrant right now and run in and grab something versus, hey, there's a fire across the street and I'm just going to double park my car in front of this hydrant. Is it the same act? Is it the same act? It's not. You know, and to pretend like you're not aware of any of this debate that's going around, like, I mean, give me a break, right? I mean,
if you don't emphasize that it's part of a like cross-country ideological discipline of educators project by the Republican Party, then you're doing a complete malpractice as a commentator, in my opinion.
And a grassroots electoral effort as well.
Well, it's grassroots, but let's also not overly credit it with that because the Koch brothers are also funding.
Okay, yes, or an attempt at
It's a new attempt at a Tea Party. It's the same thing.
Yes.
Folks, we're not going to have time for any more phone calls. I'm sorry. I know it.
Outrageous.
It is.
We got Beck if you want it.
Well, we do have time for Glenn Beck. Let's do this. Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck is, well, you know, there's a move to impeach Biden because of the 13 Marines who died in the military operations to evacuate over 140,000 people the U.S. evacuated. And on that same day, I don't know, you had hundreds of unvaccinated people die in this country because of COVID.
And in wars, I don't know if people want to be reminded of this, people die in war.
Yeah, ostensibly, like, but they're over there protecting us from
scary Muslims?
Death?
Yeah.
I mean, like, wait, what? But here is Lauren Boebert on with Glenn Beck, asked, like, the tough question, like...
Well, of course we've got to impeach Biden, but maybe we should go a little further.
Right.
Kamala Harris as president. Does it get any better?
So, of course, that is the number one question. When you start thinking about impeachment and discussing that, you start going down the list. Well, do we really want President Harris? Do we really want President Pelosi? She certainly has shown what she does with the People's House here in Washington, D.C. I can imagine what she would do with the White House. So I have legislation that will be introduced in impeaching both Biden and Harris, and Nancy Pelosi can follow them out the freaking door. She certainly needs to be held accountable for this as well. And we have called, as the Freedom Caucus, we have called on Leader McCarthy to introduce a resolution to vacate the chair.
Holy cow. Has that been done before?
No, we've made it up.
Yeah.
Historian Glenn Beck.
Right, yeah, exactly. Have you ever impeached both the vice president and the president simultaneously while also making the Speaker of the House sit down? Has this been done before?
Not necessarily.
Like, I mean, wouldn't you know, Glenn? I mean, I don't like to credit Glenn with the history bona fides, but I mean, that would have maybe came up in some of your research.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll be monitoring closely on this program where this House Freedom Caucus in the middle of a Democratic majority in both chambers, where this effort goes to simultaneously impeach Biden and Harris. But like part of this too is what they're going with is Biden's incompetent, right? And this leads to American deaths.
Yeah.
And Harris is black.
It's funny how they're just like reproducing the stuff about like, oh, should we want to impeach Trump because what if Pence gets
so
in
much
there?
of this is just like it is amazing.
They just flip it and reverse it.
It is amazing.
But in that scenario, is McCarthy president? Kevin McCarthy?
Who's
no,
fourth in line?
I think it's like you start to go into like a Secretary of Education soon or somewhere around there. Like, Alexander Haig, I think, becomes president, doesn't he?
She should just put in her impeachment that Trump becomes president again.
Right.
Well, that's the thing that they're talking about, making him the Speaker of the House if the Republicans take the House.
Mm-hmm. Well, then there you go.
I'm
That's
busy.
the best way to get it done.
How many days do I got to be there? No.
Oh, you know, that reminds me, and I don't know if we should say this publicly if we're going to do it, but yeah, we should. We should just be like completely upfront. I got an email from an outfit that wants to advertise on conservative shows. And it's merchandise stuff for like Trump. And they apparently have some cash, they said.
Wait,
to advertise.
wait. Advertise on conservative shows?
Well, I think conservative shows, I think the email may have said something like conservative shows like yours.
Well, they do know that. I mean, that the colloquially we call this the silent majority report.
Well,
not colloquially, but just behind closed doors, I should say.
I guess the idea is, let's see, if here it is. Okay, I'll read it right now. Hi, my name is Kimberly. We run and operate an e-com brand for conservatives. We currently spend $30,000 to $50,000 a month on for our brand, and are quite interested in running a sponsored segment on your YouTube channel. I mean, we sell hilarious conservative merchandise, including a mug that says "Joe, you know I won" on it, and it's signed by Donald Trump, which we believe would be a huge hit on your channel. I get it. I please send us your rates. We would love to work together. I mean, our advertising rates are, and this is probably not stuff I should make public, but
yeah, why?
$30,000 to $50,000 a month is actually our advertising rate. We don't have a lot of sponsors at that level, but for merchandise, that's what we charge. And I think we've got to.
I think we've got to do.
We've got to respond to this and say, like, this sounds great for us. Because I think our audience loves hilarious conservative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so a mug that says, "Joe, you know I won" on it.
Some advertising
signed
intern
by
did
Donald
not
Trump.
do their research.
Can we get samples?
Yeah. Yeah. We probably need some samples for this too. But I don't want to do anything to actually sort of mess up the dynamic.
Besides talking about it on air.
I wonder how much of but they're not. I mean,
they clearly don't want it.
They're not watching this deep into the show. So I just wanted to let everybody know that when you start to see like the ads for conservative merchandise, you know what's going on. My least favorite listener. I used to be a big Elon fan, not so much lately. Kind of think he's a joke now, and he's a big obstacle to clean energy by selling other companies their carbon credits. Not good stuff. Indeed. Sam's dirty bathwater. I wrote in yesterday about the COVID outbreaks in my kids' school in Texas and the school not allowing kids to miss if they were exposed. Today we got an email telling parents we have a choice to make. The choices are now mask our kids or face a shutdown of campuses due to the expected lack of staff. The email reminds me of Trump's speech urging people to take the vaccine and how they feel they have to coddle these right-wingers and ask them so nicely if they don't get their feelings hurt. If this district knows shutdowns are imminent, then they know it's spreading out of control. As a matter of public health, I can't fathom why they're risking the lives of the staff and students by leaving this as a choice up to the people who are going to bitch no matter what. But as the letter said, they cannot force the mask mandate due to Abbott's dumbass order. My understanding is that Abbott's order has been enjoined. I'm not sure about that. I know in New York State, Hochul stepped back and on vaccines and said that, there's not a vaccine mandate in schools anymore, that now it's like you get, a testing regime or this and that, but there is a mask mandate. The only thing that and it doesn't apply really in this case, but I heard a radio interview with a county supervisor who was like, we haven't issued a mask mandate in the county, but we've done a strong suggestion about indoor mask wearing. And he was asked why, and he can't really answer. And the answer, because the real answer is this. You need to choose what's going to get the most uptake of mask usage. And because this country is so effing effed up, and there is just a mass psychosis in this country, fed by, all the usual suspects. You don't know as a public health policy measure if you're going to get more mask usage for a strong suggestion or a mandate. at this point, like, that's a question you have to ask depending on the locality, right? Like in New York City, I think if you put a mask mandate, people are like, okay. Because the vast majority of people are like, all right, we get it. There's data that suggested this, that. But there's a lot of places, because there's such lunatics in this country, that you put in a mask mandate, they don't wear a mask because of the mandate. And it becomes like... And so I sympathize with that. In Texas, I don't know if that's the case. The school board, I don't know if that's the case. But that's it. It's basically like, because you can't start having cops come in or whomever, and but at one point you've got to cycle through the suggestion to see if that gives you the kind of uptake, and use of masks, that you'd want. And then after that, maybe it's like, strong suggestion is supposedly there to give people who are like working in a store the ability to make it a policy, let's say. Things are effed up. It's just insane. Misfit Black Girl. Normally the fact that I'm infertile causes me emotional distress, but in light of Scosis, I'm finding myself thanking my lucky stars. These people are monsters. I'm not an accelerationist, but things like this Texas law make me feel like we're in the apocalyptic or accelerationist timeline, whether we like it or not. Any tips for avoiding doomerism? I don't feel like my rant just before this helped.
No.
I don't know. If you want me to reach, I'll reach. I really believe that the Democrats, for the midterms, they need to put Donald Trump forward. They need to lean into Donald Trump and Trumpism, and they need to. They need to do other things too. But I don't think you're going to get a situation where there's only so much they can do at this point. I'm talking from electoral standpoint, because, Sinema and Manchin are what they are. And I would like to see, Biden get in there and get rid of the filibuster, at the very least, for voting. But I don't know if there's a material package beyond the infrastructure bill, because that's huge. This is going to be the biggest material benefit if it passes. And I'm talking about the reconciliation. The biggest material benefit that Americans have seen in a decade, at least. You could argue that maybe, Medicaid expansion was bigger in some respects, but I don't think so. This is going to be huge. I don't know that it's going to be sufficient to drive out voters in the midterms. People vote, sadly, on partisan, what did they call it? It's polarized and anti-partisan sentiment. And the more that Donald Trump is associated with these Republicans, the more you're going to drive people out. You also may see the suburban women who came out in 2018 in a big, big way might be hopefully motivated by this as well. We'll see. We'll see. So that's the avoiding the doomerism. Aaron is not cool. In terms of Elon, I'm a little wary that every loss he takes won't matter if he hits big again one more time. I was watching Tim on Toast's 4-part series on James O'Keefe, and the amount of embarrassment and L's he took didn't matter because of how quickly and immediately it was washed away as soon as he hit once. Musk fanboys and investors will line up because he sold them an idea, not a product, that they can now line up and give him money. Emma, Sam is not going to get that Dr. Dre reference. What Dr. Dre reference?
It was earlier.
Well, then this guy was right.
Yep.
All right, 4 more, and then we're out here. Wet, hot American summer, Cedar. Hey, Sam, didn't expect such a softball uncritical interview of that Musk guy. Tesla is a fake company used to prop up billionaires' net worth. Teslas are also extremely dangerous. Their batteries explode, and the firefighters can't put them out, and the wheel wells explodes, causing crashes. Don't even get me started on their AI driving nonsense. Really hope you can bring someone on soon who has dug into the history of what frauds Musk and Tesla are, leftist best, poggers, etc. Yeah, I appreciate that comment. Piglet needs a quack track. You all need to listen to True Anon's series called The Lamest Show on Earth. Seriously eye-opening on how fraudulent Tesla and Elon are. R-Tax. Another advantage Tesla has over other car manufacturers is their supercharging network, which has not been available to other electric vehicles until they start selling adapters sometime this year. So even though they are competitive vehicles on the market, they don't have access to all the same chargers across the country. Interesting. And the final I am of the day, Jay Chivone. You can put a plow on a Chevy 1500 and they market a plow package where the truck has more powerful alternator, heavier suspension, and undercarriage baffle. I push a 7-foot 4-inch plow blade with mine, and I have a very steep driveway. Can't have a back seat or long bed because of the turning radius issue with a plow mount. If I were a commercial plow guy, I'd probably get a diesel 2500 with 4 drive wheels in the back. Now I tried to use a $10 plow, and I burned out the transmission in a few years of just plowing my own driveway. Great final I am of the day. Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job. See you guys tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just